It started with footprints. Jacob Carter lived alone in a remote cabin deep in the Montana wilderness, a modest wooden shelter set against a backdrop of towering pines and endless snow. He had chosen isolation to escape the bustle of civilization and to find solace in simplicity of nature. The winter months brought a sense of serenity, with the crisp air and quiet nights that blanketed the landscape in a heavy silence. Yet, one icy morning, Jacob awoke to a mystery that shattered his sense of security. He had risen at dawn to the sound of wind rattling the eaves, only to discover something unusual outside. A series of large, booted footprints led up to his weathered porch, disappearing just before his front door. There was no vehicle in sight, no sign of any traveler having passed through the area, only those unnerving prints in the fresh snow. At first, Jacob considered that perhaps a lost hiker had taken refuge near his cabin, seeking warmth or shelter. But the nearest town was many miles away, and no one had knocked on his door the night before. With mounting unease, he swept away the prints with a quick shovel of snow, hoping to erase what he assumed was nothing more than a harmless mistake. However, the next morning revealed a darker pattern. The prints had reappeared, this time forming a circular trail around his small dwelling. Unable to shake the feeling of being watched, Jacob armed himself with his trusty shotgun. That night, he settled in by the frost-covered window, scanning the bleak expanse of snow and dark silhouettes of trees. Around 2 a.m., a chill ran down his spine as he noticed movement at the far edge of the tree line. A dark figure, cloaked in shadow, stood motionless. It was too far to discern any clear features, yet its presence was undeniable. It simply stared, as if studying him with an otherworldly intent. The following morning, desperate for answers, Jacob dialed the local sheriff's office. The deputy on duty assured him that no missing persons had been reported and that the wilderness was known for its stray wanderers. Yet, the unsettling incidents continued. The next night, as Jacob fought the grip of sleepless terror, a soft, almost inaudible knock echoed through the silence. The sound was so gentle that it might have been the wind, but then came a whisper distorted by the cold. "Let me in." With his heart hammering, Jacob crept to the door, shotgun in hand. Every instinct screamed danger as the knocking repeated. Mustering his courage, he flung the door open and found nothing but a swirling flurry of snow and a new set of mysterious footprints leading back into the darkness of the forest. His instincts told him that these were not the prints of any ordinary traveler. In the pale morning light, while investigating the remnants of the mysterious visitations, Jacob discovered a disturbing artifact by his doorstep. Lying half buried in the snow was an old photograph. Its surface was cracked and yellow with age. The image depicted a man standing before a cabin that bore an eerie resemblance to Jacob's own. As Jacob examined the faded portrait, he felt a cold dread settle into his bones. The man in the picture looked uncannily like him. Overwhelmed by dread and confusion, Jacob spent the next few days scouring old records and local lore at the small library in the nearby town. What he uncovered was a tale almost too surreal to believe. More than a century ago, a man named Samuel Carter, reportedly his own ancestor, had inhabited a cabin on this very plot of land. According to local legend, Samuel had vanished one bitter winter, leaving behind only a trail of footprints in the deep snow that led mysteriously into the surrounding woods. The story told of a spirit, trapped between worlds, forever wandering the desolate winter nights in search of a lost home. That very night, as a fierce blizzard raged outside, the knocking returned with vengeance. Now, it was louder and more insistent, echoing to the thin walls of the cabin. Amid the relentless pounding, a voice emerged, a low, hoarse sound that carried an eerie familiarity. "Come outside." Jacob's instincts warred with his terror. Clutching his shotgun, he remained barricaded by his door, listening as the knocks dragged on for what felt like an eternity. When the relentless tapping finally ceased, an oppressive silence filled the room, a silence that carried a promise of something unspeakable lurking just beyond his safe haven. By the break of dawn, when the storm had finally abated, Jacob ventured outside only to find the photograph had vanished without a trace. In its place lay a fresh trail of footprints, their origin as inexplicable as the one that had started it all. They led deep into the trees, vanishing into the unknown. With his resolve shattered, Jacob abandoned his cabin that very day, leaving behind a life built on solitude and the mystery of an ancestral curse. Years later, locals still whisper that forlorn cabin, and the spectral figure said to be seen on the coldest nights. They say that if you wander near the tree line under a frozen sky, you might catch a glimpse of solitary man, his eyes glowing with a sorrowful warning. And if you listen carefully to the howling wind, you may even hear that haunting invitation, "Come outside." On a remote, frozen lake in northern Minnesota, the cold could grip your very soul. Alex Devlin was a seasoned ice fisherman, a man of routine and solitude who found peace in the harsh winter environment. Every year, he ventured to the same secluded lake, a vast expanse of ice and frigid water untouched by the modern world. The lake was a silent sanctuary for him, a place where the only sounds were crackle of ice and the soft murmur of wind over snow. But one fateful winter, Alex's annual retreat would turn into a nightmare that defied explanation. On that bitter morning, the lake seemed unusually still. The ice was thicker than usual, a solid, unyielding sheet that instilled a false sense of security. Alex drilled a hole in the ice with practiced precision, the rhythmic tapping echoing in the silent air. But as he worked, a rancid odor drifted upward from beneath the frozen surface, a smell not of nature, but decay, like rotting meat hidden beneath layers of ice. Alex dismissed it, attributing it to a dead animal long forgotten under the weight of winter. Yet, as he settled into his routine, something peculiar caught his eye. Bubbles began to emerge from the hole, rising in erratic patterns that were anything but natural. They swirled and churned as if disturbed by an unseen force. Leaning forward, Alex peered into the inky blackness below the ice. At first, all he could make out was a murky depths, but then, unmistakably, a human face materialized in the darkness. It was not the face of a fish or any creature he could identify. It was a human face. The eyes were wide with terror, and the mouth was frozen in a silent scream. In that frozen moment, the face seemed to plead for help, its features contorted in an expression of abject horror. Alex recoiled in shock, his breath turning to mist as he stumbled backward, nearly toppling over in his seat. Heart pounding, he bolted to his truck and sped away from the lake. Once in the safety of a nearby town, he recounted his harrowing encounter to anyone who would listen. The reaction was unanimous, a mixture of disbelief and dread. A weathered local with deep lines etched by years of living in isolation leaned forward and whispered, "That lake, you shouldn't be fishing there." He explained that decades earlier, a group of local men had fallen to the ice during a sudden thaw. Their bodies never recovered. Some say the lake itself held on to their restless spirits, refusing to let them find peace. Determined to prove that his experience was not merely a figment of his imagination, Alex resolved to return to the frozen lake a week later. With a mixture of dread and defiance, he returned to the same spot. The ice was still thick and unyielding, but as he drilled another hole in the same location, he could not shake the memory of that ghastly visage. Still, he persisted, determined to fish out the truth behind the uncanny happenings. For hours, Alex sat quietly, casting his line into the abyss beneath the ice. The cold seeped deep into his bones, and the silence of the lake pressing around him like a shroud. Just as he began to doubt his sanity, he felt a sudden, powerful tug on his line, a force unlike any fish he had ever encountered. Struggling against the pull, Alex reeled in the line with all his might, his arms trembling from the effort. Then, without warning, something emerged from the dark depths, a hand. It burst through the fragile ice with a sickening crack, its pale, waterlogged skin contrasting starkly with the blue-white of the frozen lake. The fingers, elongated and almost skeletal, grasped the air with a desperation that chilled him to the core. Alex's scream was swallowed by the vast expanse of the frozen wilderness as he scrambled backward, eyes fixed on the disappearing hand. The line, now slack, dangled uselessly into the void as the hand receded into the murky water, leaving behind an eerie silence that was more terrifying than the initial shock. In the days that followed, local search parties scoured the frozen lake. Alex's abandoned truck was found parked near the edge, his ice fishing gear arranged meticulously as though he had simply stepped away momentarily. Yet there was no sign of Alex himself. only a set of footprints trailing off into the icy wilderness, halting abruptly at the lake's edge. The mystery deepened when another fisherman later reported hearing strange, inhuman sounds emanating from beneath the ice, low, guttural murmurs that resonated with grief and despair. The local legend of the frozen lake grew, whispered in hushed tones at community gatherings and over crackling radios. Some insisted that the lake did not let its dead rest, claiming that the spirits of those lost beneath its surface still reached out for salvation. Alex Devlin, once a pragmatic man, became a cautionary tale for those who dared to venture onto the ice during the darkest, coldest months. The lake, with its silent depths and unexplained phenomena, remained a sinister reminder of a secret that should never be disturbed. In the winter of 1976, Mark and Lisa Reynolds were eager for a quiet escape from the pressures of everyday life. They booked a stay at a renowned historic hotel in the heart of the Colorado Mountains, a majestic lodge known for its rich history and grandiose architecture. The hotel, isolated by snow-covered peaks and blanketed in winter's chill, promised a retreat into elegance and relaxation. But what began as a romantic getaway quickly morphed into an experience that defied explanation and chilled them to the very marrow. The first night at the hotel was almost magical, a serene evening filled with soft conversations by the crackling fire in the grand lobby, the rich aroma of pine and the gentle glow of antique chandeliers. However, as night fell on the second day, an unsettling disturbance broke the calm. Lisa was awoken in the early hours by the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoing down the deserted hallway outside their room. The sound was heavy and deliberate, each step resonating with an unnerving certainty. Mark, initially dismissive of the sound, eventually joined Lisa in a cautious inspection of the corridor. The hallway, usually vibrant with the murmur of guests and staff, lay eerily empty. Yet, faint traces of cold air lingered, as though a presence had passed through moments before. The couple felt an inexplicable chill, a reminder that the hotel's history might be more than just ornamental. The next morning, still rattled by the nocturnal disturbance, Mark and Lisa encountered a peculiar bellhop in the lobby. His eyes, shadowed under a knit cap, held a look of resignation as he leaned in to whisper a cryptic warning. "No one stays in room 418. Not anymore." The couple exchanged puzzled glances, and with trepidation, they approached the front desk to inquire further. The clerk's face grew grim. In halting tones, she explained that years ago, a man had checked into room 418 only to be found frozen to death just outside its door the following morning. He had arrived as any other guest, but was never seen alive again. The circumstances of his death had become a local legend, one that whispered of restless spirits wandering the halls in search of lost warmth. Though the incident was officially closed long ago, rumors persisted that his ghost still haunted the corridor, seeking solace in the frigid night. That night, the couple returned to their room, a small space that seemed increasingly claustrophobic under the oppressive weight of the hotel's atmosphere. As midnight approached, an eerie stillness settled in. Then, with a sudden, sharp clarity, they heard a series of knocks, 3 precise, almost ceremonial raps, at their door. With hearts pounding in unison, Mark approached cautiously and opened the door to find nothing but the echo of his own racing heartbeat. Yet as he looked back, he noticed something startling. Delicate frost patterns forming along the doorframe, as if the cold had seeped in from somewhere beyond. The experience haunted them. In the morning's weak light, while packing hurriedly to depart the unsettling hotel, the front desk clerk caught sight of their fearful expressions. With a knowing nod, she murmured, "You saw him, didn't you?" The question hung in the air, unanswered and heavy with implication. In the weeks that followed, Mark became obsessed with uncovering the truth behind the hotel's macabre history. Late nights found him scouring old newspapers and hotel records in the local archive. He discovered that the man who had met his fate outside room 418 was not the only victim of a series of mysterious occurrences that had plagued the establishment over the years. Photographs from decades past showed a recurring shadow, a dark, featureless outline lurking in the background of many images taken near room 418. One grainy black and white photo, in particular, revealed the silhouette of a faceless figure standing in a hotel window, its form distorted and ominous. Lisa, though deeply unsettled by the ordeal, tried to move on with her life. Yet, The memory of that cold, unyielding knock and the spectral frost clinging to their door never fully left her. Whenever winter arrived, a subtle chill would seep into her dreams, a constant reminder of that eerie night at the hotel. Some nights, in the quiet of her own home, she thought she could hear soft footsteps outside, echoing the relentless march of a spirit still confined to that cursed corridor. Over the years, the legend of the snowbound hotel grew. Former guests recounted their own encounters with inexplicable phenomena, ghostly apparitions drifting silently through the hallways, sudden drops in temperature in specific rooms, and the unmistakable feeling of being watched by an unseen presence. Room 418, in particular, became notorious for its persistent aura of cold and despair. Even with modern renovations and advanced heating systems, visitors who dared to spend a night in that room reported waking up in the middle of the night to the sound of distant footsteps, or feeling a paralyzing cold, as if the very essence of winter had taken residence in the room. For Mark and Lisa, the experience at the hotel left an indelible scar. The snowbound hotel, with its grand facade and haunted history, had become a symbol of winter's darker side, a reminder that even in the midst of beauty and elegance, there lurked secrets that defied explanation. And as the years passed, the couple's once bright memories of their getaway became overshadowed by the chilling narrative of a ghost in search of warmth, forever wandering the icy halls of a hotel trapped in time.